let's talk about how to find a accumulation schematic. Now, right here on this chart, you guys may see that it's kind of hard to find a zone of accumulation. Now, the way that you are able to identify a zone of accumulation is going to be by the following. Things that you want to take in consideration is going to be liquidity. Another thing that you want to take in consideration is going to be a verification of liquidity, which is going to be the thing that's going to get us the overall confirmation that market is now creating that overall accumulation, and all we have to wait for is going to be a discount into a point of interest or a valid area that we will take in consideration for a continuation to the upside. So as you may know, accumulation schematics are created in overall moves to the upside, and we are going to be looking for a bullish scenario. So in this case scenario, things that we are seeing at this very moment is going to be the following. We can see how market had been creating liquidity in this section. So we have some nice liquidity right over there. Market also created some nice liquidity right in this section. So we have liquidity from both areas. Now, as we may identify, the following is that market went ahead and had a huge spike to the downside. We had a huge spike to the downside right over here, as we can identify this move. Now, by us being able to identify this huge move to the downside, we want to look left and see, was it reacting off of something? Is it a reaccumulation or is it just the accumulation? So in this case scenario, it is a reaccumulation that's happening, which is testing off of a previous point of interest, which is also fulfilling a nice zone of imbalance. So we have two confirmations right here: point of interest, accumulation, and imbalance. So technically three confirmations. Now, as market comes up and spikes into this section, what did we do? As you can see right over here, we went ahead and created liquidity, which is very important for us to identify for a potential accumulation schematic. So we had created liquidity in this section, market spikes up, takes out the liquidity, tests this previously, and now creates the overall liquidity that we want to be paying attention to. The moment that we start identifying this right here, this is when we now can say, oh, I can see the potential accumulation schematic. And the potential accumulation schematic is starting off right over here. So at this very point in moment, now all I have to wait for is going to be for a retracement into a overall point of interest. But before we see that retracement into point of interest, we have to wait for that verification of liquidity. Now the verification of liquidity is simply taking out previous liquidity, a huge move, but overall, once we see that move to the upside, we want to see an instant move back into a point of interest, which is going to be a previous point of interest. So at this very point, we can see a verification of liquidity. What is the verification of liquidity doing? It's taking out previous liquidity. Now, understand the following. It's taking out previous liquidity after it had already taken out another liquidity zone. So it's going to be the second liquidity zone that market is going to be taking out. First liquidity zone that I took out was this right here, took out this liquidity, and then created liquidity and took out that liquidity. Okay, so this is the second liquidity zone that was confirmed. And once you start seeing that, then you start identifying the overall accumulation that can be spot out. This is going to be very, very big. Your verification liquidity is what's going to help you understand on what direction of the market you're looking at. Now, once you start seeing that verification liquidity, you're going to be looking for market to potentially retrace back into discount levels of its previous expansion point, or discount levels into points of interest. So in this case scenario, we have the overall expansion level. We started the overall expansion right in this section. And a discount level, we can see anything bigger than a 50%. We can see how market comes very nicely into 88.6 level. 88.6 level is one of my favorite levels to take in consideration for these overall scenarios, and 78.6 level as well. Now, what's the next thing that I am looking at right here? Well, what are extra confirmation that I can pay attention to? An extra confirmation that I can pay attention to is the following, that I have a nice zone of imbalance right in this section. Nice zone of imbalance that was fulfilled for a potential continuation to the upside. As soon as we see that, what are we looking for? We're looking for our potential entries down over here and stop loss right underneath our overall expansion level that was created. So at this very moment, now we can identify what our risk to reward ratio could have potentially been. So we can see how stop loss would have been right underneath. Take profits. We go ahead and look for our verification of liquidity, leading us for a nice 1-4 risk reward ratio. This would have been a great move to the upside. Understand that we are overall continuing bullish. Now, many people may have been saying, hey, Mauricio, well, what if it started retracing over here, because this can also be considered as a potential distribution. Many people would be saying that. Many people would say this would be a potential distribution. Yes, it could be considered as a potential distribution, but until distribution has been confirmed, then you can go ahead and move on with that distribution. Since we are in an overall bullish scenario, you want to keep going with that direction, meaning that you're going to be looking for every reaccumulation. So let's say this, you found that this reaccumulation, and then you have another reaccumulation right over here. Look at how nice and neat this is right here. We have a nice reaccumulation right here. What are we seeing? We're seeing how market creates nice little liquidity, takes out liquidity, comes over here, creates our liquidity right here, and then why you look at that, we have a verification of liquidity, taking out that and then coming back down into either points of interest or zones of imbalance. As we can see, market came and fulfilled the zone of imbalance for a continuation to the upside. First TPs, remember, right above verification of liquidity. Stop losses underneath where overall expansion started. That would have been a nice move. And again, you may be asking, well, Mauricio, isn't this right here a distribution? Yes, but understand once again that you will only be looking for distributions once the distribution is presented, meaning that it is confirmed and we are in a down movement. But until then, you will continue on looking for overall bullish scenarios, which is going to be, you will be looking for overall accumulations and reaccumulation. Accumulation, reaccumulation. And what will market do? It will present itself again and again and again. And what I mean by it will present itself again and again and again, as you can see how this was a accumulation, this was accumulation, and this a potential distribution. We'll now look at it from the perspective of it being a potential accumulation. Well, what do we start seeing here? We start seeing liquidity, we start seeing our point of interest, we see the expansion to the upside, we see how market created a nice, once again, verification of liquidity. So we will be looking for market to come back, retrace into what? The start of expansion, points of imbalance, so on and so on. And our TPs are going to be what? First TP is going to be that zone where previous market had created. And what do we see again? Once again, look at this. How neat, how easy, how beautiful. Another reaccumulation. So you can see how market is doing that over and over. Reaccumulation, 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 reaccumulation. And until a distribution is presented, such as is right here, now that this has been presented, what are we going to start looking for? Now we can start looking for distributions. But until then, we'll go ahead and leave it as is. And I'll see you guys on the distribution lesson. I hope you guys enjoyed this quick lesson. I hope it was comprehensive. I hope you were able to identify the difference between how it is, when it is that you identify accumulation and when it is that you identify a distribution. If you are looking for accumulations because market is overall bullish, only focus on the accumulations, don't focus on the distributions. And trust me, you will be a lot more successful in that way. With that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed. As always, leave a thumbs up and I'll see you guys on the next lesson. Have a great one. Bye-bye.